Welcome to the Politics Chicks podcast. I'm Monica Healy.
And I'm Christy Branham.
It's been a while since we've done a podcast for various reasons. And now that Minnesota is under siege, we decided that it was time to bring it back. And we're happy to have our guest today. Anton is a mutual connection through I worked with his wife, fellow music teacher, and he put up a Facebook post that was very striking, and he agreed to let me share it in the Substack article, and you can find that on our Substack. Anton sent me a little bio, and I think I have a little bit of a crush on him now. So, can you share a little bit about yourself, Anton?
Sure. Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me on. So I grew up in Stillwater, just east of the cities, little river town. My mom was born and raised there as well. I mean, a couple generations of folks on my mom's side. Both my parents were employed by the state. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a carpenter by trade, and he was a foreman at the minimum security prison, where they do like a work release to get guys associated with the trade before they are fully released. And I kind of like this idea that I grew up in the 80s and 90s when being a Democrat and a Catholic and a Union family, there were no contradictions there. There were six of us on our street. I know we all kind of look back fondly on simpler times, but it's just so poignant now when I just think back to all of those people that I used to bump into on a weekly basis that today would rather spit at you than look at you. It was a great time. Great place to grow up. Went to school here in town, at the University of St. Thomas. I studied business and English. I did an abroad trip and went to London for a while, and that was a really formative experience for me, not just intellectually and educationally, but also politically. That was in 2003 when the Gulf War kicked back off, shall we say, and there were protests. I mean, every weekend, every little neighborhood had a protest going on, and I want to say it was in the spring of that year. I don't remember which month. Over 1 million people, maybe some accounts say up to 2 million people, were marching through the streets of London, shut the entire city down. And I was, I was 19, 20 years old at the time. I had a sense of what was going on, but in retrospect, that was definitely a formative experience for me as well. Just feeling like I was being a part of something that had a really big message and kind of speaking truth to power, and being surrounded by so many amazing people of all walks of life that had come into London from all over, the UK and the continent, to take part in that particular march. Got out of school, didn't do really much with my degree. I went into design and development, and I started working at ad agencies. I spent a little bit of time working at NPR, which was kind of a dream job, and taught for 5 years at MCAD, the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And 2020, I was kind of soft shoeing my way out the door of my current agency, and then the world shut down. So I didn't have much choice but to kind of do the bootstrap thing, and started my own little consultancy and started a startup with a couple buddies, doing music software. And we're almost 6 years on now, and we haven't crashed and burned either of those, so we're trying to keep those in the air. Got 2 little kids, coming up on 9 and coming up on 12. One of them's at elementary school here in town in St. Louis Park, and one of them's at the middle school. My wife's a teacher in public school as well.
For our listeners,
Um,
St. Louis Park is a suburb just west of Minnesota, known for its large Jewish community, very
mhm.
welcoming and vibrant community. And Christy and I are just north of you in Maple Grove, a northwest suburb.
Yes,
For those that
yes.
are not familiar with the Twin Cities.
Yeah, Monica, like you said, so St. Louis Park, just geographically, is just west of the lakes. So the kind of chain of lakes in Minneapolis flank the west side of downtown and uptown. For those not from here, uptown is south of downtown. That just makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
And so my house is 5 miles west of where both Renee Good and Alex Pretty were killed. I mean, everything is kind of happening right over there, and
I think people who don't live here don't understand how non-insular the
yeah,
Twin Cities is, because we are all, many of us are in and out of the city every day. A lot of people work downtown, and the surrounding communities are the throughways into the city. Like, there's back ways into the city. Like from St. Louis Park, you probably don't
mhm.
take the highway in. You take
No, of
um
course not. No,
no,
that's for
Lake Street. So this, it's, when we say that this is happening to Minneapolis, it's spread out throughout the suburbs as well, and we're all
And greater
connected.
Minnesota, too.
Yeah. Yes.
That's right. Not a day goes by when we don't see a headline about ice up in St. Cloud or down in Rochester, or raiding some small business, and I'll be the first to admit that when all of this was really starting to happen right around just before the holidays, at least it was coming into my media diet. Um, my folks are retired, and they still live in my childhood home, and they're just up the river from in Stillwater there, and I in an effort to kind of tamp down any anxiety that they may have been feeling, it was my opinion at the time that um that the point that this administration was trying to make is that it's the immigrant communities in the city that are the problem, and that was going to be the big show they were going to put on. And I think it really surprised a lot of us a few weeks ago when we started seeing them moving into the suburbs and seeing them moving into, outside of the metro. Really, Operation Metro Surge is not. It's not a great name. Go figure. But it's also just not accurate because it's happening. 90 minutes south and 90 minutes north of the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Christy and I both have grown-up kids who work in suburbs, and they have encountered ice at their workplaces and near their homes. And Christy and I talked before about how it's one thing to have 20-something-year-old kids that at least have some tools in their tool belt to deal with things. But can you talk what it's like to have young kids right now, and maybe share what you talked about in your Facebook post?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the worst. Not recommended. 0 out of 10. Um, uh, there were a couple weeks there where we were talking about it. My wife and I were talking about it as something to shield them from. My 11-year-old going on 12 is yeah, he's 11 going on 25. He's one of those kids. He always knows what's going on. He always wants to talk about it. And it shouldn't have surprised me, but it did when the day after Renee Good was murdered, I took him out for a bite just to kind of have some, one-on-one time with him, and asked him, how he's doing, what did he know about what was going on. And I mean, aside from some very minute details, he knew everything. He knew what was going. He knew that she was a mom. He knew that she had 3 kids. He knew that she was in her car. He knew that she was shot 3 times. I mean, he knew details from a New York Times article. Like, these kids in middle school are so much more plugged in and um media savvy. I should hesitate to use that term, but media aware, at least, that it did kind of catch me off balance a little bit. But before I could even really regain my composure from that mild shock is when he started talking about Renee as a human, as a mom, as a person. Have we met her? And he started tearing up. And I reached across the table and grabbed his hand, and we kind of just sat there. And he tried to ask a couple more questions, and they didn't quite come out. But the next one that he was able to get out was he was immediately he was trying to find an off ramp. He was looking for a solution. And so he asked me how I dealt with that kind of thing when I was a kid. And that's the one that got me. I'm tearing up thinking about it right now. I mean, the idea that he would think that this is normal, that little kids having to deal with this is normal. Sorry.
We're human
Um,
here.
Yeah.
that one really got me. Yeah. That and I had to, just like I am right now, I had to take a couple breaths and take a beat. And we talked a little bit about how that we can't let this feel normal. Like, we have to feel all these feelings, and I'm sorry he has to feel these feelings, but just the fact that he's exposed to this and he's having to think critically about it, and he's talking to his friends about it. And I know that they're not like bringing it up necessarily like in class. It's middle school. That they're not having academic conversations about the law or anything around it. So I totally get that. But I think talking about what this will do for him as a kid that's going to grow into a young man that's going to grow into a man one day, and how this is going to make him stronger for it. I think that at least that part helped me. And it was funny because as we kind of finished up and we're walking back to the car, then he started asking, like, well, how long is this going to last? When is it going to end? And that's when, instead of with him, I knew I couldn't just say, I don't know. I had to offer something, because I knew where he was going, and I knew he was looking for some kind of solution to the cognitive dissonance that he was dealing with. And I talked a little bit about, there's political solutions to this, there's social solutions to this. But really what it comes down to is we're going to help our neighbors. And we know and love some people that live right here on our street in our community that we know are going to need a hand over the course of the coming days and weeks, and God forbid months, but it's looking more and more like that every day. And then talking about he was really energized by the political conversation, which kind of again took me off balance because he's never been interested. And, his mom and I talk politics all the time, and it, he couldn't glaze over faster. But talking about there's 5 Republicans who are joining us on this particular vote, and maybe we could grab a few more. Maybe if we can get a big enough protest, somebody will listen. And that was 3 weeks ago, and now we're recording this 4 days after something like 50,000 people marched through Minneapolis, and 24 hours after Donald Trump miraculously had a change of heart and decided to de-escalate. So having that conversation with a 12-year-old was very different than how I could have it with a 9-year-old. The next night, my daughter was asking, she had started hearing about it from friends at school, and we did like the traditional kind of sit down on the couch and everybody cuddle up and let's talk about stuff kind of family meeting conversation. And that was a much softer conversation. It was still, my daughter was sitting on my lap and she was crying. She was just quietly crying the whole time. And she needed some extra hugs before bed that night. And, it it hit her in a different way. Obviously, a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old are very different kinds of kids. But she, it's like everybody knows this has more than one kid. Every kid's different too, and they need a little bit of different kinds of attention. And so I think navigating that in those days, this is now 3 weeks ago, was tough because it was uncharted territory. And when I say I hate when I feel like things are being normalized, this was the first time that I kind of got stabbed in the side with the normalization feeling, is when then just like 2 weeks ago today, I was on patrol around my daughter's elementary school like I had been so many days before. It was a beautiful sunny Wednesday afternoon. The buses had already entered the roundabouts and the walkers were already starting to come out the doors, and 6 ice trucks and 2 like hired videographers, I guess, jumped out of their vehicles right across the street, kicked in an apartment door right across the street, and we all started doing the thing. We started whistling, blowing our whistles and honking horns. And we have a slightly different protocol over there where it's our first responsibility to make sure the school stays safe. And so we're not like rushing them like you see in all of the videos. There were some rapid responders who showed up and did that later, but every person that was on our team within a block or 2 radius was there in what felt like 3.5 seconds. And we just kind of, linked arms and made a little human chain across the street there. And, then it was funny because of like time dilation or something like that. Felt like it happened immediately. And then it felt like we stood there for an hour while they ransacked that building and came out empty handed, which was, but, and so from my perspective, I'm thinking, okay, this is the first time I've like been witness to one of these things. It's our responsibility to make a ruckus and alert people in those buildings. And by the way, these buildings are, I don't know what the percentages is, of course, but lots of Somali families, it's lots of Latino families. They all go to my kids' schools. They're all friends. We all hang out with their parents. I mean, these are our friends and neighbors, literally. And what I later found out, my daughter told me that as soon as they started hearing the whistles, kids were crying and screaming, thinking that they were going to get home to an empty apartment because their parents were going to get taken.
When we're talking about all of this, and I don't know, Monica, how you're feeling, but I'm wavering back and forth between anguish and sadness and rage and resentment, and thinking about the collateral damage all of our children are to this.
The collective trauma throughout our state, I can't even imagine. And we talked before we started recording about the fact that I'm in my second cat because I was at a vigil for Alex Preddy down at 26th and Nicollet, and it's really cold. And that, I guess the one thing that is the good thing that has come out of this, while it is horrific to basically live under occupation, there's some beauty in the community building. I have been blown away by the coordination and mobilization of communities to do what you were talking about. Moms that are out at school start time and school dismissal time and recess time, and community groups that are coordinating collections of food and supplies, and then delivery of those food and supplies, and then the patrol groups that have somebody at home coordinating, and we need eyes on this corner, we need eyes here. And you and I have both been engaged in that. You want to talk at all about that?
Yeah. Look, we love Minnesota. Both my wife and I are lifelong Minnesotans. We moved to St. Louis Park because, we had friends here, and, the rumors are true. It's just an amazing community full of amazing people of all walks of life, and that's what makes it so amazing. Also the Coen brothers and Al Franken grew up down the street. So, like, if it's somehow kicking out those people, there's got to be something in the water, right? There's definitely the sense of, like, I knew that my community was something really special, but, before a tragedy to force you together in this way, it's kind of a theory more than a testable science fact. And I think at this point we can say Minnesotans are uh, a very special, hearty, kind, and more than anything, generous people. I just couldn't believe it when I went to my first meeting to raise my hand and meet the organizers. How many people could cram into a library meeting room that was probably intended for 20 people? I mean, there were like 200 people in there. Literally busting out the seams, and seeing some familiar faces, but meeting so many new people almost every day out there, and we've all got the same intention, which is just, what can I do to help? And I think that's, I've got a lot of personal theories about why the media has latched on to Alex more than they did Renee. I think there's a lot of built-in misogyny going on there, especially because
100%.
she was gay.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But, I think that anybody who ever took a first aid class, or, worked as a server, or like any part of your life where your job was to be a helper, you can directly empathize with what Alex was doing, not just like on the day of, but like the literal moment up until he was executed. Like, he was just there to help. And there's nothing you can say to, like, quantify this statement, but, like, we all owe him and his parents and his family, his friends and his colleagues, like, such a debt of gratitude for helping shape the man that he became. Because, those two people are going to be heroes of this place for a long, long time.
Agreed. Their names will live on forever. And it's somehow fitting that in the 250th anniversary of our country that we are now creating the heroes of our country going forward. The vigil that I went to was organized by nurses because, Alex Preddy was an ICU nurse at the VA, and the nurses there spoke about how that is a helping profession, and it really was. Literally, with his last breath, the last thing he said was to the woman that he was trying to protect, "Are you okay?"
Yep.
I think that doing something like this, having you on Anton, and getting emotional about this is really important, because I think that it's important for everyone to see the very human side of what is happening here. This isn't statistics. This isn't a government operation. This is an imposition, an entrapment, a demoralization of the human beings that are living here. And I guess what I'm struggling with is the everyday barrage of seeing what's going on, right? So, and you and Monica have been more up in the weeds about it. But how are you guys coping with this? How are you taking care of yourselves and processing this and keeping yourselves okay?
I'm a huge fan of um the like thinking of that airplane message as a metaphor, the secure your air oxygen mask first before helping others. You know, I talk a lot about this with my professional teams. I used to talk about it with my students when I was teaching at MCAT. And now I talk a lot about that with my organizing team that, you know, first of all, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. We don't know how long we're going to be out here doing this. And I don't think there's going to be a clean break when all of a sudden, you know, one day we decide that our work is over. But making sure that people are taking care of themselves and taking a break when they need to and resting when they need to is uh it I should say that it's something I have to tell myself a lot. I think Monica, if you asked my wife, she'd probably tell me to take my own advice. I'm not great at it. I recognize that, but it's really whether it's a mental health issue, a physical health issue. I mean, literally yesterday we had a, you know, in below zero wind chill. We had a 70-year-old grandma who has been coming out every single day, and you know, she doesn't do signal or anything. She just shows up and she goes where she's needed. If we don't have someone over there that day, she goes over there that day. She she took 2 days off last week because she had knee surgery. She she was back on the third day, you know, and there's nothing we could do to stop her. And you know, yesterday she was getting a little lightheaded and vision was getting a little blurry. She was dehydrated. That's all it was. But she wouldn't, you know, it really took a couple of us to grab her and make her sit down and assure her that we've got her post covered, you know, for the afternoon. We can bring her home and get her warm and get her something to drink. But that's, you know, that's the kind of people that we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are so passionate about being out there and doing what they can to help their community. She doesn't even have kids or grandkids at this particular location. She just shows up because it's her neighborhood, you know, and it's just it's so heartening to see that kind of response. And it's across the board. I mean, some of us are really lucky. You know, we work from home and we have some freedom where we can take a couple of hours off in the afternoon and go do this. Some of us, you know, can't and they can do other stuff. And that's like, again, to our previous conversation, like it takes so many different kinds of people with so many different kinds of interests or experience or skill sets to make this work. And by the way, it's so decentralized that, like, that's another thing they don't understand. I keep seeing these hilarious posts about like, oh, well, it's clearly George Soros funded because look at, there's a snack table at this protest. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
It is
I
100%
have three
organic.
aunties who brought this stuff. Like,
Well, and as time has gone on, things have become even more hyper local. Like
yeah,
my kids that live in Minneapolis, they now have their own group that's literally 6 blocks by 6 blocks. You know, it started as a larger neighborhood and now they're even smaller. And it really is community and taking care of each other. And you mentioned this 70-year-old woman who just can't leave. I think that's a point that needs to be made too, is that people are sacrificing their own well-being to help each other. A woman that I was on patrol with today had an appointment, and we happened to be we found 3 confirmed ICE vehicles, and she didn't leave. I said, "You can go. You have an appointment. I'm here." She's like, "No, I'm staying." So she missed her appointment.
yeah.
Neighbors mean something to Minnesotans. Community means something to Minnesotans. And I'm not saying that that is unique to Minnesota, but it's just part of our culture here. You know, I'm not from Minnesota. I'm not a native Minnesotan. I grew up in New England. And Monica grew up in South Dakota. but
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself a Minnesotan, and I
Same.
love I love this community. I love my neighbors. Um, I live in a very diverse neighborhood. My kids grew up playing with kids from India and Pakistan and Israel. And I'm so grateful that my children had the opportunity to grow up in a community where they were just exposed to such a broad number of cultures. We had neighbors from Nepal who invited our kids over for Diwali so that they could see what the Festival of Light was like. And I I cherished that when my kids were young because I'm like, "Oh my God, this is wonderful. They're learning to appreciate all these cultures." And now we're living in a society where we're being told to believe that homogeneousness, that blend of all these different beautiful cultures is not what America is, and I refuse to believe that. I reject that with every ounce of my being. We're products of our community, and our communities are strong and beautiful because they are diverse.
Yeah. So say
We're
we all. Yep.
we're a nation of immigrants, all of us, unless we are Native American.
Mm-hmm.
And Christy and I have found with having a good sized platform that people outside of Minnesota are looking to us, and um, we're kind of the beacon right now, but they're also wanting to know how to help. So for our listeners, we will put some links in the show notes about some ways that you can help. Stand with Minnesota has a lot of links, and I attended the Singing Resistance last Saturday, and they have truly hyperlocal links to help neighborhoods where families are at risk of eviction. And one suggestion is to contact Governor Walz and ask for an eviction moratorium because these people haven't been able to work for quite some time. So get on the phone, check some links, and help where you can because we're in it now, but we're all Americans and we're all fighting for the country that we deserve. So Anton, thank you for sharing your experience and for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for. I mean, I was being a bad English major and having not joined Substack until I started talking to you guys. So thank you for giving me the push I needed to do that. And looking at your back catalog, I mean, just I mean, a history of amazing work and content. So thank you guys for everything you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Something really unique happened just a couple hours ago that I want to mention before we finish up here. I have a cousin who lives in Nottingham, over in the UK, and she, like you guys, said that she liked the thing that I wrote, and she shared it with her community, and they somehow it got up to their MP, their member of parliament, and that person is putting together a, rally in Nottingham for the people of Minneapolis on Friday, and they'll be reading that letter as part of the rally.
That's
Um,
very cool.
and so this thing is everything we're doing is it is worth it for its own merit to tell our neighbors that we love them, but it's also making an impact beyond what we can see. I mean, we can all turn on the nightly news and the national news and cable news and social media, and yeah, see that there's folks talking about it in DC, but seeing that it not only reached across the pond, but like is making a big enough difference that they're holding a rally in like a St. Paul sized community in northern England, you know, that's we're doing the right thing. We're on the right side of history. These people who literally went through this a generation ago see it,
Yeah.
and they're putting effort into highlighting the voices from a half a world away. So anyway, yeah,
That's
I think that you
amazing.
guys you're doing great work. Can you please keep it up?
Well,
Likewise.
so are you. So
Yeah.
are you. I think it takes all of us doing what we can with what we have to make this work, because like you said, it's not centralized. This is all organic, and all of us are just kind of picking up our shovels or our signs and showing up and where we're needed, picking up our whistles. So
Whistles and
That's right.
phone. Yeah, it's in times like these where ordinary people do extraordinary things, and thank you for that. Uh, like I said before, it's been horrifying to live under occupation, but also a beautiful thing to behold the sense of community that has come out of it.
That's right. And again, this is what they don't understand. They don't understand that we're doing this for our community, that we have nothing to gain other than our freedom. We're not doing this for a profit. We're not doing it as a power move. We're not even really doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for our communities. And it's such a foreign concept to these people. I love that we are confusing them.
yeah,
It's maybe the thing I take the most pride in all of this. And the silver lining, the other thing that they didn't recognize that they were doing, is that they were galvanizing us. They gave us an excuse to finally do the thing, to a rallying cry, a loon in the shape of the Star Wars Rebel emblem. I mean, people are
right.
getting tattoos of that. This isn't going to turn off when they pull, a couple hundred troops out at the end of this week. People, my kids are going to remember this for the rest of their lives. And I'll tell you what, that when they get to a point where they're going to be voting or they're going to be making a difference in their community, if they sniff an ounce of this kind of authoritarianism anytime in their lives, just like people over in England are doing right now, they are going to stand up and they're going to scream about it. These kids, I mean, they've already been through two once in a millennia tragedies.
Right?
Uh,
Right.
you know,
Right.
they're gonna be so strong, and they're never gonna put up with this. That's it's. I have to look at those kind of silver linings.
I
Yeah.
love that perspective.
Yeah. Your kids have not experienced precedented times. They have lived in completely unprecedented times. So,
Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Anton, and
Thank you for having me. This is a real treat. Thank you for doing your work, for getting this out there. Um, everyone I work with thanks you.
and especially for someone like me who is disabled, I thank you for stepping out there and being there and representing people like me who can't be there physically. It really means a lot that you guys you're literally risking life and limb to be out there to protect your community. So we appreciate
And
that.
and thank you for doing. I think I said before we hit record that the behind the scenes work is critical in the absolute definition of the word. We couldn't do our work if we didn't have people um, behind the scenes being those keyboard warriors, going to bat for us in social media, um, uh, writing, recording, speaking, doing the things that will energize and continue to keep this movement going.
Thank you again. I mean, this means a lot to Monica and I.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thank you guys. Look forward to seeing it on Friday.
take care.
Okay.
And
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Thanks again to Anton for sharing his experiences. Christy and I have talked about the fact that it would be very challenging to parent young children during these very challenging times. And I think people outside of Minnesota don't really understand what it's like to be here now. So hopefully after this, you have a little insight into things. We are community builders, and we're on the ground and helping to take care of each other.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. And I guess I'm just going to close out by saying that these are incredibly challenging times, especially for those of us who are in Minnesota. But I think the takeaway from this is that we are standing up and we're pushing back and we're showing the rest of the country that we refuse to take this laying down. what's happening here matters, and how we respond to it is already showing the rest of the country what resistance rooted in community looks like. And if there's any takeaway to this, it's hold your neighbors close.
Mm.
Learn to cherish those relationships and rely on each other, because that's what's going to get us through this, I think. What do you think?
People need each other. People need people. We don't need things. We need each
Yep.
other. And I think
Yeah.
Minnesotans have done a great job of showing the world of what's really important. If you're finding meaning in the stories that we're sharing, if something moves you, challenges you, see the world a little differently, please like, comment, and share. Helps more than you know. It puts our work in front of more sets of eyes and goes miles in helping us grow this amazing community.
Follow us everywhere at The Politics Chicks on Substack, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Keep shining the light so we can find each other in the dark.
And remember, we're always stronger together. Thanks, folks. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.